What's up, everybody? How's it going? What? What's up, Guido? I see you joking around already in the comments. Bookshelf. I got the new standing desk office space I got set up in my apartment now because Mrs. Mojo is going to be giving birth to Little Miss Mojo very soon. And I'm expecting to need to be on hand. So I have a new kind of work from home office space here set up. So got my standing desk, and I got some books. I got some books on the desk. Primarily, we got a big neuroscience set here. We got some Eastern European history. The Rise of Statistical Thinking, very excellent book, highly recommended. Exorcism and Enlightenment, also very good. Yeah. Cheers, Sam. Thank you very much. Yeah. We got about 1 month to go, and then there's going to be five. There's going to be 3 Mojos. I can do. It's an odd number. It's the same thing. 3, 5, 7, all the same. As far as I'm concerned. Seth is driving. Yes, please do not crash. I was just talking to my dad. He was on his way to work this morning in Connecticut, and we were talking on the phone, and he missed his exit. But that's okay. We got a little bit more time to talk. But yeah, crashing definitely. Do not want to quote Darth Vader from the Vietnamese translation of the Chinese translation of the pre-release DVD of Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith. Anybody ever see that? It's called Backstroke of the West: The Third Gathers. Anybody see that? Seth, right on, beginning with the main question here. Love it. Yeah, we're going to talk about this. This is going to be a big part of what we talk about today. Seth asks, has anything come up to dissuade you from your Rainbow Road thesis playing out later this year? The answer to that is no, although nothing has come up to dissuade my thoughts there. So what we will do, I'll walk through that. So, short answer is no, but obviously we'll spend some time talking about what this season is that we're heading into. I think it's important that I be clear also and iterate what I mean by Rainbow Road and sort of what I think that's going to entail. So very good question. We will come back to that. We'll finish with our hellos here. Dob2, what's up, brother? Yeah, highly recommended. I think the whole thing is on YouTube. I'll write it here in the chat, and then you guys can decide whether you'd like to cook it or not. It's called Backstroke of the West: The Third Gathers. Very good. I'll put it up here. Backstroke of the West: The Third Gathers. Highly recommended. Backstroke of the West: The Third Gathers. It's just Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith, but it's also at the same time much, much more than Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith. Backstroke of the West: The Third Gathers is an English translation of a Vietnamese translation of a Chinese translation of a bootleg DVD copy of Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith. And it's very good. Lots of very questionable. It's very fun to figure out and try to find out what the actual key terms are that are being translated. So things like the Jedi Order is translated as the Presbyterian Church, which is very, very good. And then they're the names get translated literally. So for whatever reason, Anakin Skywalker is Allah Gold. And Obi-Wan Kenobi is ratio tile. I don't know why, There's ratio tile. And so his title is section ratio general. And there's a whole time where and General Grievous for whatever reason is just space general. So there's a scene where they meet on Utapau, and General Grievous goes something like space. It goes, section ratio general. You really is a day of brave. And then Obi-Wan Kenobi responds to him by his name, which is Space General. Very good. Highly recommend it. It's all on YouTube. You can see the highlights, and you can also watch the full thing there. So highly recommend that. There's a little warm up here. Andrew Blay says, "Are you guys still in Cyprus, or are you all back in the States?" We are currently in Cyprus. No more recent drone strikes after kind of that initial wave a little while ago from good old Hezbollah. Nothing too close here. I mean, there's an EU task force, I guess, like naval task force or something in the area. So I guess that helps. I guess also Hezbollah is too focused on Israel or something like that. So they kind of just chilled here. The only kind of damage that happened was, so for those of you who don't know, right, Cyprus liberated from the Ottoman Empire in the 1870s, and then it became a British protectorate. In 1960, the British decided to allow the independent creation of a Republic of Cyprus. They decided to disallow union with Greece, which won the vote in the 1950s, but they decided not to do that. Created this new independent country, where then they would also have a couple sovereign bases. War here, some civil unrest broke out in the 1960s. Then there was a coup in Greece, and then like the military junta in Greece tried to force the unification issue in 1974, and then Turkey occupied about 36% of the country. And then they've set up a DMZ, which, by the way, if you guys have never seen a demilitarized zone, do you guys want to chat? Do you guys want to see a demilitarized zone? Do you guys want to see a demilitarized zone? Mr. Skin says yes. One is enough. One is enough. One is enough. Not super awesome visibility right now. Yeah, Mr. Thetabucks. Hell yeah, give us a DMZ. All right, I'm gonna tilt you guys over here real quick. Usually you can see like the like the main Turkish occupation zone very, very clearly. But if we look out the window here, let's see. So it's a little tough to see. The glare is pretty big there, and there's like fog and stuff. I'll have to show you guys maybe next weekend when it's a little clearer. But anyway, the DMZ's right over there. It's like right in the distance there. There's the Troodos Mountains, and then it's just, oh wait, let me get my hand. It's here. It's this. That's the DMZ. So it's right there. Pretty cool. There's also this like giant Turkish flag with a quote by Ataturk that lights up like Christmas at night, and then like just to like perma taunt the Greeks from the Turkish side. You can see it for miles. And we can see it right here. Actually, I got a great deal on the apartment, specifically because Greek people did not want to live here, because to look out my window, you'd have to see that Turkish flag, and that's not awesome, especially if you're Greek, I guess. Doesn't particularly bother me. I guess I do have some Greek ancestry genetically, but based on the colonies in Magna Graecia, possibly, right? So I have South Italian ancestry, so it means genetically I have like connections to the Aegean. We think also maybe even people from Cyprus, like long ago, like left Cyprus and went to maybe Italy, because there's a lentil dish they serve here that's exactly like one that my grandma used to make for me when I was a kid. And I've never found anyone ever prepare this lentils and rice dish um, ever. Anyone else ever. And it's just like commercially available here in just like all of the, just walk into like the corner market and they're like, yeah, you know, we got spanakopita and, you know, alioti and souvlaki and of course fages. And it's just like my grandma's lentils. And it's like, oh, just all the time here. Okay. Okay. So yeah, so we'll get some more DMZ shots. We'll get some more DMZ shots later, but yeah, so that little episode was just kind of Hezbollah sending a couple Iranian drones over to the RAF base in Akrotiri, which is like an hour drive from here. Akrotiri is very close to, right, it wasn't Tekeli, no, it was Akrotiri, which is very close to one of the top vacation spots. Yeah. Oh, what's up, Douglas? Thank you for my, I think that's Swedish krona. Is that right? That's very excellent. Thank you very much, man. What are my thoughts about the price around Q4? I'm going to assume that you mean quarter four earnings report. Yes, you do. Very good. Quarter four is a little ways out, but I mean, I could share thoughts about that, but that's what I figured. Q4 earnings report. We can hop into that, right? That's a top topic I know on everybody's mind. So let's pop over. We can do a little full screen deal here. Oh, what did I do? We want this. Why is that square? I don't want that square. I don't know why this isn't widescreen. Maybe this. There we go. Okay. So, right. So right now, one of the key things that I'm working with, of course, that you can see by this yellow line here. Let's clean this up a little bit. Basically this kind of wedge thing. I mean, this isn't a support line, just to be clear. I know a lot of people like draw wedges and they're just like, oh, it's a line that we won't go. No, that's not what this line is. Just, you know, I keep that there. That I assume will be something like our average price into basically early 2027. Based on, you know, so thinking about Q4, like I actually think we will maintain something of an average price that continues kind of this downward slope into 2027, unless we get some really interesting, you know, I don't know, some sort of curveball, but I would basically expect that. What I'll say is that the primary thing that I've been looking at as sort of a reference line is to sort of try to understand where we're getting cyclical transition and sort of what cues in our cyclical transition and sort of what the offset is this 53-week theory. So this is something a ways back I was talking about with Richard, and he actually noticed this, right? I pointed this out to you guys, this idea of the 53-week swap, and it was an idea that came about as a result of the Epstein files, of all things, right? So in the Epstein files, one of the things that comes up a number of times is that Jeffrey Epstein was making a lot of his money. A lot of how he made his money was by opening 53-week swaps. So for example, the image I think I showed you guys a couple weeks ago was of a long swap on Apple. It was like a $3 million long swap on Apple. And they were up about back in like 2016 or something when this was, they were up like 900K on this particular swap. So the 53-week swap is very interesting and a very interesting tool. And using the 53-week swap, this idea of a 53-week offset, basically kicked off this theory of, okay, so we've got these star swaps, which of course Richard, spent years talking about this and developing this theory. The star swap theory was very big going into last Q4 earnings. It more or less did help as a guide. What was very useful and what was very helpful about the star swaps that March is we did have a lot of easily parsed, or some folks had parsed and publicized a lot of swap data based on, I guess, baskets containing both GME and Chewy, something like that. It was Metro Ballin originally who had put out these swaps. And so, I mean, to keep this brief, right, the idea was we had we had this data, and we had, the star-based swap theory, which was just going low to low and trying to figure out, okay, how many months? Is it 6 and then 5 and then 5 and then 6, or what's going on here, right? Richard was trying a lot of different things. And so in this particular case, I think it was with yellow star swap last year. So we can bring this up on the chart so I can show you. We want to bump down to the day. Tighten this up a bit. So yeah, so it was in here, right? And so we had, yeah, it was right around here. I think the 11th was the first day we had marked, and that was off only by about 2 days. The 13th was our low, and then we got this double low, the 31st, and then we got the second touch on April 4th, but on the 27th, and then the 31st. And I remember, if you go back, right, I still have those live streams up, and videos back from March, back from quarter four earnings. And I remember specifically talking about this. I remember saying, hey, look, this is what's going to happen. We've got swaps coming up. We see this in the data. We got this. There's a red star thing. It's going to come down, right? We know these bonds are getting offered. They're getting moved down, so this swap can get rolled, and it's not going to go back up until after the 31st. Once we get these swaps out of the way, right? So I think red star, Richard had marked red star on the 28th. I think we still had quite a few that were marked on the 31st, and so those did play out that way. Okay, now I haven't seen that swap data. Talking to people who do look at swaps on a regular basis, that stuff is not as easy to see. So if there are big swaps, if there are 53-week swaps on this stuff, for whatever reason, it is very difficult to find those positions. They're very well hidden. Okay, enter 53-week theory. 53-week theory allows us to say, okay, well, let's understand, let's go by the assumption. Of course, we don't have a data on this, but let's work with this as an assumption and see as a heuristic what this can show us if we look forward. And so the idea here is, okay, if we walk the price 53 weeks forward, that should tell us what price there was a swap was rolled or entered, a short swap 53 weeks prior. And so the idea is, just like we think about things like gamma levels and we think about max pain as ways, right? We don't know this for certain, right? It's just a very powerful theory that does give us decided trade advantages, right? You guys know this is what I talk about all the time, is like, the call wall covered call trade. And obviously this, changes depending on season, and there are different ways to think about this, but it's a very, very effective trade. Okay, so the idea in trading is not to be perfectly right, but to be right enough to understand enough that it gives you an efficient and effective way of being able to trade profitably. So, okay, something like the call wall, call gamma, largest call net gex wall covered call trade on a regular basis, right? That idea, thinking about max pain, thinking about OPEX theory. So taking, say, Gherkinit's theories to do with, basically OPEX cycles and the connection to FTDs, thinking about FTDs, right? These things all allow us, even though we don't know for certain, we don't have conclusive or definitive proof that this is absolutely how it works, we do know that by trying to do analysis and forward projections that are based on these ideas, it gives us an advantage in predicting, in executing our trades. And so that's right, that's the idea there. That's at the end of the day, right, as people who are trying to live lives and also do other things and not say, get every trade perfect all the time. I mean, even that is impossible to do. That's very valuable. So 53-week theory comes out as another one of these. And so as this type of tool or heuristic for forward projection. and to see if that can give us some inkling about what we can expect in terms of our price action in the future. Now, 53-week theory, I would say, does give us, right? So just like the star swap, thing didn't come quite to the day. It was, kind of plus or minus 2 days. Sometimes FTD covering, because we'll talk about that in a second too, is, there's a window where these things can be covered. It's hard to nail it down to the day. But it does seem, or at least the theory would be, that you can be more accurate with respect to the week on this basis. So if we bring this back up, so we bring up this this time offset here. I have closing prices set here on our chart. Okay. So here's our 53-week closing prices. One of the this is actually one of the things that's very interesting, right? Just as an aside before we get into this question about price action, right? It's very important to keep in mind that this price action back here, all of Roaring Kitty's return stuff, how insane this price action was intraday during the week, every single week, and I mean every single week back here, closed below the 53-week forward projection line until July, actually, right? So that whole deal, all this May stuff, this crazy, insane cat ear thing, the closing price, I guess almost, it was a little bit above here. But very, very close, right? It seems almost as though there was effort to try to get the price to close back below this line. And then what happened basically from the summer kind of going forward is the let's say the fallout of this event is that this is something Richard suggested as well, that there is something of a, based on this idea of Roaring Kitty flip mode. Okay, they all entered into long swaps so they could be delta neutral, and then re-entered another round of short swaps on top of here, and then waited 53 weeks basically for the long swaps to expire. And then we flip back over here, and now we've been under a little maybe critical moment here. One thing I found particularly interesting in this sense is this has continued to hold up going into this week, right? So earlier in the week, we started off, we're knocking on the, I think we did have 2501 for a second, right? But where did we end up? Oh, who could have predicted that we would close out the week 2352, especially as we really get in close here. Whoops. So we really get in close here. So we close below that line. Magically, somehow, right? After going all the way up here, we close below that line. And if we look, right, we do have a bit of a decline here. So down to about 23. So if I would say, right, if we're thinking about this, and you can mark me on this. You can mark me on this. The price suggestion for this week for March OPEX, the price suggestion here going into this Friday's close is that we will see $23. The price will need to be below $23, $22.99 or something like that, or something very, very close, like 23.02 or something. Just like we saw 23.53, I think was this week's close ultimately. So something like that going into this week. So getting below that mark, because that's where that closing price is back 53 weeks back. All right. Now you'll notice just in time, earnings week this week has a little divot, right? Earnings week this week, which is going to happen on the 24th. It's not correct. It's not. It never is, right? They never get it right. Right? Somehow me, some random dude talking to you on YouTube, can get it right. But for whatever reason, all the Wall Street analysts and whatever, they can't get it right. It's going to be here. We should get an announcement Tuesday, Monday. Did they already do it? Did they already do the announcement? Let me know in the chat. Let me know if they already did the announcement, if I sound silly. But in any case, I think very much that not next week, but the week after. Yeah, they should. Yeah. not next week, but the week after. We've got earnings probably on the 24th after hours, and that we will see a little bit of a recovery into that. So something like 23 for the week of 22.98, let's say. And then maybe we get back up to 24.50. Maybe even intra week we see 25 again, just prior to earnings itself. That's very possible. We do have a little bit of a potential for pressure coming off. We can take a look at FTDs and see if there's any more an extra reason to suspect that we might have a little bit. But something like that. There is a little bit more room there the week after. So we got a little push into this week. I think somebody mentioned too, cost is going down. Looks like we're going to have this. There's probably a swap here, right? This low suggests that this low that we're seeing going into this week, this coming week, is from that. I think that yellow, what Richard called the yellow star swap back last year. So that would have been on, I think, Thursday, March 13th. That was rumored or based on the data that we were looking at that was compiled by Metroballin. That looked like it was the remnants of the Archegos position taken over by Credit Suisse and then taken over by UBS. The last of that. So that would be next week. So a little bit of a low, a little bit of recovery into earnings. Now it does look like earnings is set up. It looks interestingly high expectations. There is no way I think that we meet revenue unless somehow the trading card stuff and Nintendo Switches and Pokepia and whatever, unless that went truly, utterly bonkers. I don't think that's the case, but unless that happened, I think the announcement was we closed something like 500 stores or something. And I think that happened before February. So that's definitely going on there. It just looks like, and then profitability, what did they say? Yeah. And then we've got the Bitcoin thing happening too. Bitcoin's been down. That's going to show as an unrealized, but you have to mark it. It's going to show as something like 150 million or $180 million loss on that position, unless somehow Ryan Cohen traded a part of the position, but I don't expect that's the case. I would then say that's going to be used immediately as the fuel into the next week to see us slump, way back down here. Basically, maybe even 21, maybe something like that into early April. We stay low, but definitely by this, early April, right? So Easter week is going to be low, right? So before Good Friday, think about that as low. I don't think they let us come too high. So we can take a look here. We can go chart exchange. And we can see, right? April OPEX, we're around $21 in terms of Max Payne. Max Payne is down there on the 17th. Okay. Expecting some sort of effort to try to drive all of this out of the money, or most of it, right? Get down, maybe close out April around $21. Let's take a look at the GME 1 options. This matters. They're not going to want to deliver on those warrants. It's not that much, but we will not go above 24. I think that's very clear. By April OPEX, we will not be above 24. And I'll have to look at the positioning. 25, 24, probably not 23.2, and then we've got some put stuff down there. So we actually do into April OPEX itself. Again, I'm thinking probably sub 22 or around 22. That's what I think for April OPEX. Now, after that, this is where we get back to the Rainbow Road question. What does Rainbow Road mean? So there's this Rainbow Road meme from Roaring Kitty, which goes back to, let's see, this March, April, May, June period right back here. So let's close this a bit. So Roaring Kitty dropped the Rainbow Road meme. I want to say, was it in February? I think it was February. I don't recall, actually, but maybe it was in April. Actually, I think it was the week of April 12th here. Not the exact bottom, but then we did another run here. So when I talk about Rainbow Road, I talk about this season, and I talk about the fact that basically since Roaring Kitty's return, we get this move, right? We get an upward move typically in the kind of April to June range into Q1 earnings, and then we kind of settle off. So we got one there. We got one, yep, right here. So April, and right, this one lasted the whole summer back in 22, 20, 23, yep, March, up, and then double top in June. So another move there. I mean, obviously, it's smaller than this one. Obviously, May, June here with the Roaring Kitty return. Part of the reason I think he particularly chose that time to strike is because he knew this dynamic was in play. Last year, obviously, Rainbow Road again. So the idea is certainly, I think if we're seeing, right, last year it started a bit earlier, right? Maybe we start to get the recovery a bit to kind of that 22 by mid-April. But then, you know, if we overlay this chart again, this 53-week chart, right, then we've got room to run. And it is very likely. So what is then the actual catalyst for moving this stuff? Obviously, there's going to be something like a news event that they'll use to excuse, this is what's driving price action. That's not what it's going to be, obviously. It always has to do with settlement. So what settlement? What's going to be settled? Well, in order to get the stock price down below these swap prices, they're going to incur FTDs. These FTDs won't show up until May sometime, you know, maybe when we're already halfway up. But what will push the price up is then going ahead and clearing these FTDs. Okay. So the idea that's the idea there behind the Rainbow Road thing. And why do we have these moments? This is the theory then. Why do we have these moments during that season? And it's something like, well, there's swaps that happen to be clustered around Q4 earnings. And so because there are swaps, the price needs to be moved down to accommodate those swaps. Because the price needs to be moved down to accommodate those swaps, there are FTDs incurred. Because there are FTDs incurred, eventually those need to be cleared. And their clearing period ends up, you know, around, according to the Bernoulli formula, right? T plus 6 plus C35 plus T, you know, T plus 4 range, especially if it's an ETF. Yep. So I expect we'll probably get something like the board vote, right? So what we got teased in January that was then probably partially used to excuse the FTD clearing in January into early February was the rumors of the vote in March/April. Notice how they were vague about that. End of March, early April is when we're going to have it. So little bit of vagary there, but then, you know, they'll announce that maybe who knows how many days after earnings, around earnings, don't know. But probably close to it. Maybe once the swaps are rolled, then they'll go ahead and drop that announcement. And then maybe a bit later, they'll announce the results of the vote for Ryan Cohen's pay package. And that will then be used as the excuse for the upward volatility in May or June. Now, obviously, there is always the wild card. There is always the question of is Roaring Kitty going to come back? Is he going to try to mess around with the options chain in such a way that it forces these hedging dynamics, right, to then, you know, catapult the stock upward, right? Not sure. But if he's going to pick a place, and it is very interesting to see that maybe we do have some Communication by proxy with his brother, maybe. Plausible deniability, obviously. But if we start to see a little bit of activity in that regard, and it starts to line up with what we're saying here toward that season, maybe we do go ahead and see. I don't know. I hesitate to go ahead and say, oh, he's definitely going to come back. But one of these episodes, one of these moments where there's going to be some sort of cyclical transition, will be another opportunity for him to do something if he's going to do that, right? If he's going to do that, he may wait until 2027, right? Which is where that wedge is pointing there on the chart. So, okay, before I talk about how I'm approaching this particular theory, because this is basically my thoughts for the next few months, what I think is going to happen over the next couple months. Before I talk about that, I want to go ahead and take a look at the chat, answer some questions, because we got some folks chatting here. Also, Douglas, I hope that fully addressed your question, and that was what you were looking for. Let me know if you have any follow-ups. Johto J-Day, great name, by the way. Love the Johto region. I think that's silver and gold, isn't it? Silver and gold versions is Johto. Oh, nice, dude. Took 60K on my rental property to start getting serious with selling GME options. Ready for a trip back under 22. Yeah, man. Yeah, that's gonna be like I said, I think we do see that on the other side of earnings. I think we see that. And certainly I am, as I said, well, I'll talk about my positions in a second. Yeah, have some cash, been stacking up, both in terms of what I've been doing with options and, making sure the accounts are funded. That time of year, get the tax stuff squared away. It's another thing too, right? You get the tax stuff, everybody gets their tax stuff squared away, and then you're ready for your next round, right? In April or June, right? Oh no, it took the tax lot. Oh, come on. So, yeah. So definitely looking forward to that. Shibo, what's up, man? Welcome. Catch up on 2X. Hopefully you're caught up with us. Hoog's here. What's up, Hoogster? Guido, good question. Wonder how many people in finance are aware of the 53-week swaps. Our CEO did make a lot of money on Apple. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I have to think that they're, it seems like this is a really basic instrument to use in the sense that, like, if you're a trader, of course you're using options. If you're an institutional investor, if you're a large size investor, you have to know, you have to be aware of how swap, you have to be aware of the 53-week swap. Somebody, you're not going to go into that unless you've got some sort of connections, I guess. To try to go into that blind is a little risky, I think. But yeah, that's a good question. Who says, do you think that the repricing after the next earnings could align with the vote for Cohen's compensation package? Yeah, I started to talk about that, but I think we get priced down based on earnings, and then I think that the news of the vote or the news of its results is a prime candidate to be used in order to to elevate the stock price thereafter, right? It's a very excellent cover, let's say. Shibo, yes, yeah, it was a good price, but the owners did tell us that they did not. They did not want. Yeah, they themselves bought this apartment, and then see, the thing was, if you look at the mountain right to the left, there's this earlier version that's made. It kind of looks like the old school Hollywood sign, kind of, and it's just sort of into the mountain with white paint, so you can see it, but it's not terribly in your face. And I think very recently they decided to put up it flashes. It actually flashes like Christmas lights at nighttime. So it's if you're driving down the highway, right, you're driving into Nicosia, or you're driving from the university like into town or something, like you can't miss it. You literally cannot miss it. So I think for a lot of folks that was kind of a deal breaker to have a window and a porch or whatever, like facing a giant flashing red and white Turkish flag was just like, especially for Greeks, that's no dice, no dice. And you have to listen to the muezzin too. Not as bad as that island I was on in Thailand, like getting woken up by the call to prayer at 4:45 in the morning. It's far enough away that it's not terribly loud, but you can definitely hear it. You can definitely hear the muezzin here. Don't think that's also terribly appealing to a lot of Greeks. Should be the most profitable year in company history. I'm not sure. I don't know those early years, but certainly from 2021. I mean, it's still going to end up being a very profitable year. But the report, I think they're still going to miss that. They're still going to point to declining revenue, store closures. And that's the thing, like, the real thing I think that's valued here is a merger, right? Yeah. Yes, I am using SMAs on those charts, Guido. I play around with some EMAs at some point. Let's see Tomer's question. What's up, Tomer? Why do you think RC made an early announcement about an acquisition, and when do you suspect it will happen? His philosophy was always good news on time and bad news early. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of that. Look, again, I don't have proof of this, but I think I mentioned this. I have talked about this on live streams, but I don't. I don't know how recently I talked about it, but I sincerely suspect that a lot of what RC has done, what Ryan Cohen has done to try to save the company, has been to show that he is not trying to be, a maverick trying to blow up the system. That is not the image he wants to cultivate. That is not what he's trying to do. That he does not like. I mean, he's been very vocal about things he does not like about the way that the system is run. But I think at the same time, he also understands that if he is read as a maverick, if he's read to be somebody who will blow up the system or try to blow up the system because of its faults, that he'll be able to get nothing done, right? He won't be able to do any of this. He'll be blacklisted. He'll be bad for business for basically everybody. And so I think a lot of what he's doing may be acknowledging and sort of kind of throwing some softballs to people who may have said, like, look, okay, you want to do these bonds? We'll buy the bonds. Okay, we'll give you the money. But, please throw us these softballs, drop the news here. Drop the news here. Same thing with the Bitcoin thing. Like, how did people find out, man? Right? That news got dropped pretty early. And a lot of people knew Ryan Cohen. Like, that wasn't a surprise to anyone that Cohen showed up in June. That no one was surprised. Like, I mean, maybe, your typical retail investor was surprised. But that was not a reveal. Like, half of Twitter knew that was going to happen a week in advance. So there's the easiest explanation is to say, yeah, it makes sense that he's playing ball. And the result is GameStop is going to get to be a successful company. He's going to be allowed to do what he can do. And at some point, everybody and their mother is going to go along on GameStop. But he, in return, he promises, to help kind of people get out of tricky positions or something like that, to throw some softballs, to throw some, I don't know, give people some layups or something like that, institution wise, and not to try to blow stuff up. But as long as, the other end of the deal is the company continues to collect working capital, investment capital, it's going to be allowed to take its steps forward in order to actually return shareholders value, because at the end of the day, to him, that's what matters, right? Including himself, right? I mean, he wins only if shareholders win, and his interests are aligned with shareholders. So I think that episode, I think that announcement of the merger thing, I mean, this was known, right? Highly suspected that that's what he was going to do. So he just, made it into an announcement. Oh, once again, right around this time that we had this big FTD clearing thing. I think that was, but again, this is based on many theories, many sort of, well, if this, in order for it to be true. So obviously I can't prove any of that definitively. Oh, cheers, Shibo. Yeah, I hope it's very, yeah, if you have a chance to send me that clip, send me that clip, man. Let's see. Is my chart available for the rest of us apes? Oh, I mean, I can share it. You like my chart? I can share it with you if you like. It's just pretty basic indicators here. I got the time offset stuff. I just draw this, to get an average thing, right? This is an extension of the 500 week moving, just a 500 simple moving average. Obviously, I got Ultimator here, right? We're getting pretty close. This is the other thing too, actually, why I think we got a couple more weeks here, but then we're going to get a momentum cycle, and it's going to be big too. I mean, based on if we do get this cross, it'll, like last year, okay? Basically like last year here. Well, I mean, this is the other thing. Not actually like last year, like 2 years ago. So we are approaching what looks like a 2-year cycle over on our weekly chart here. Looking at the momentum stuff. So maybe we get across, and if we get across, maybe the Mr. Roaring Kitty decides to go ahead and strike there. Mr. Theta Buck says, do you use SMAs to inform your trade similar to using call walls? Not exactly. I mean, they are landmarks that are respected sometimes. So if I'm trying to get a sense of what I think a price range will be, I do look at moving averages as something to sort of give me an idea of an upper limit, what might be expected. I think in higher volume and higher volatility settings, or conditions, that stuff can be more important. Back when I used to do a lot more active kind of day trading stuff, yes, they do matter, and they are targets, in the day that say, like, when I was, working on that stuff, trying to pull off multiple day trades per day. I would look at that stuff and try to use that as high probability, higher than random probability entry and exit points for things. So yes, in that respect, yes, especially on shorter time frames. The longer time frames, some of our deeper stuff, I would say, like, make this a little bigger, right? So you will see that, for example, for a while, we really hung out, right on top of that 100-week SMA was a very important support for us. And right now, that is where we've been just kind of hanging out. We've been hanging out right on top of the 100-week SMA after spending just a couple months below it there. So these do tend to matter, and I think you can spot trends or spot when they matter or when they don't, depending on certain what would you say, resolutions of analysis, something like that. The time offset GME 53 close. Yeah, so here's what you're going to do. Just go into trading view, take a look for the offset thing. Take a look at time offset, and then go to your weekly chart and set the offset value in the settings to 53 weeks. There you go. You can play with opening, closing price, stuff like that. I think closing price is probably what matters for swaps. guess they shouldn't have sold the thing they didn't own 10,000 times over, just how I see it. Yeah, that makes sense to me, Bullet Bills. Timer says, thank you. Do you think this earnings run will go to 30 to 32? Sorry if you covered this. I joined late. 30 to 32. I would think more likely, because I do have this sort of broader framework where I think we're basically going to continue along this kind of midpoint average down up to about January 2027. That was just something, an intuition based on kind of looking at the chart, I thought would be the case. Trying to see, okay, how much time would be, because I based this off of, back here, right, where we had this, our 500-week moving average. I mean, this is a deep, deep support, right? And pretty crazy that in 2024, we actually dipped below the 500-week moving average, the 10-year moving average, 8.5 years or something like that. And when this happened, right, we had kitty strike. Things went nuts. So I said, okay, if we have these big sort of 3-year cycles, well, January to April, and then April out to maybe January again. When would we intercept, right? When would the price go ahead and intercept that mark again, right? And so if we maintain this kind of average trajectory, sort of slightly downward, by January of 2027, that sort of average line will intersect my projection for the 500-week moving average. So that's to say we would be around the 500-week moving average, and that price level is around $18. So what would I say here? Would I say that I thought our price would go back up into the 30s again? I mean, maybe, right? But I think there'd have to be something else in there to kind of kick us up. I don't know what it would be. I know there's a desire to get the warrants exercised. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what, would a merger announcement be, would that be teased in April to be revealed in June? But my first thought would be to play it conservative and say, if we don't, I think 28 is about where we top out, maybe even 26 or 27 again, something like that. But if there's something else, and it has to be something else, right? You have to layer something else on top of just the normal settlement cycle, I think, to get us up to 30, 32. So if we get a little something more, then maybe I can be a little bit more confident in that down the road. But for right now, I can't say. And because I tend to lean on the side of caution with respect to, say, upper price targets right now, leaning for now to just say no. That's all. Hey, what's up, Gamma Chad? How's it going, man? Welcome, welcome. Very happy to see you. Hope you're doing okay, brother. Douglas says, my thoughts are the GME price should go to approximately 25 the day before Q4 announcement, and then down to approximately 21 after the announcement. Around, I would say 25 is the upper limit, maybe 24.50, something like that. I think there's a chance for that. It's not, please make sure you think about everything in probabilities, not like it will do this, there's a good chance for that, I think. It would certainly be a good opportunity if the market really is controlled the way we think it's controlled. That's an easy way to go ahead and make a fair amount of money, especially if you're going to drop it after. Then you want to pick it up and drop it. That's how you make even more money, right? Okay, approximately 21 after the announcement. Yeah, I would see that, but I wouldn't say maybe not instantly. Maybe it'll take a couple days to really kind of peter out. Maybe 2 weeks. Well, no, not 2 weeks. No, it would have to be that week. At least the following week, right? By April 2nd, something like 21. And then we only recover up to 22 by April OPEX, which is 17th. Maybe 2250. And then maybe we can run after that. Secret Saturday live stream. Hell yeah. I put it on Twitter. You got it on Twitter. That's all. But yeah, ain't nobody going to find us. Shh. You don't got to know. Travelog. Yes, I think so. Right. So just to kind of recap that section, definitely go back. I mean, I right at the beginning of the stream, I did a fuller bit on this, but to say that, right, thinking about our 53-week theory, I think we go down next week. We get a little bit of an up, a little bit of an earnings run up, a couple bucks maybe. Maybe we go from 23 to 24.50, maybe 25 if we're feeling spicy. But then I think we come back down sub 22 by Good Friday. So by Holy Week, we're back down to sub 22. I don't think we go too much above 22 before April OPEX. We do have a little bit more breathing room there. Maybe we see 23. I don't know. Go up there, but not a close above 23, I would say. And then we've got some room to then let off some steam. How far up we go, I'm not sure, but that's the thoughts there. Guido says, I agree with your assessment of RC, which a certain subset of GME investors take issue with. It is interesting to think it's been 10 months since RK unfollowed RC. RK's image is completely opposite. Yeah, that's right. I've thought about that a bit, right? It did seem like he timed that follow, such as to maybe suggest, right, that, I mean, one thought, this was Richard's thought, right, that, flip mode was off in terms of 53-week swap thing. That's right. He took it down 53 weeks after he unfollowed RC 53 weeks after he returned to Twitter. So that's one thing. It was 53 weeks. That's interesting. The next thing is, there is a difference of image there. Now, I don't know if RK is really trying to 100% burn out the system, but he is in a position where it is, he's trading with his own money. He's just trading these cycles. He's not in the private equity institutional investment capital raise, right? He's not running the company. If he were running the company, it would be, highly inappropriate to do, I guess, what he was doing. RC is not in the same position as RK. He has different things he has to concern himself with. And I think the thing about, Roaring Kitty is, as long as Roaring Kitty's not actually involved with the company, he does have a free hand to do stuff like this. And it worked out for the company, right? But it requires the two of them to actually be in different roles to be able to fully take advantage of this, right? They also need to kind of have, here's the other thing, man. I'm not sure it's necessarily there's any real beef between these guys. I think there's some simulated beef, maybe plausible deniability for both of them, but they do complement each other in some ways, right? They do both benefit the company, but the maximal benefit to the company is achieved from them actually not directly colluding, right? If Ryan Cohen legitimately is throwing softballs to Roaring Kitty, bad look, right? That's not going to go over well. That's SEC knocking at your door. But if they really do happen to both be, acting independently, and they just vague symbols and, let them come talk to me. We're not looking for day traders, or, the dude in the pocket, or I should be on the board, or, which one of us is, everybody knows who's in charge here. Me, of course, it's you, that sort of a thing. There's plausible deniability. They can keep doing what they're doing. They can keep having this sort of dialectical relationship with one another without it being obvious that there's any kind of collusion between the two. So you know, that's my 2 cents on the topic. Hazel Allen. Hello, Hazel. Hi, my hopium is RC announces the merger info. Then we hit warrants pricing. Any clues when he will announce? It's been a few months since he told us he has something in the works. So there has to be, I would say there has to be the pay package stuff first. So we're going to get end of March, April, around earnings, they're going to make the announcement that they're going to hold a vote for his pay package. Okay. They'll have the vote in that little zone where we're talking about the price is going to be super low. That's when they're going to have it. Something like that. Think about it, right? They'll make that announcement. Maybe they'll announce the voted earnings. They'll say the vote's going to be on April 5th or April 10th or something like that, right? Vote happens. They announce the results of the vote. Pay package approved. Whoa, it runs up. Price runs up. Maybe that sends some of the warrants in the money. Maybe, something like that. Warrants get exercised. Who knows? Then there's a merger announcement. Maybe there's an announcement GameStop needs, for that reason, GameStop needs to do, this is going to be in June, say, GameStop needs to do another equity raise, another convertible bond offering or something like that, come quarter one earnings in June, and then we go back down. But then GameStop has the money for the merger, and then, who knows what happens. That's something I could see happen. Don't necessarily know if that is what's going to happen. Maybe they wait until next January to do the merger thing. Maybe. Don't know. But something like that. It's tough to take this stuff more than 3 months at a time. Really, this year I've been trying to get more on my quarterly vision. That's obviously the more you can, the farther out you can look. Kind of the more efficiently, let's say, you can trade, because you can make longer term trades to try to, that maybe they have a little bit more give, right? They're less precise, but they can end up capturing quite a lot of value if you can get that right. And why do I say efficiently? Because I don't have to spend that much time thinking about my trades, right? I can think about what the stock is doing rather than spending as much time thinking about my trades, right? One of the things I hate about day trading is you spend so much energy thinking about your trades and taking trades and how much. No, don't do that anymore. Like I said, I don't even really trade week to week. Right? I'm thinking months is when I do weeklies, right? I do weeklies sometimes in terms of selling them short, right? I don't go long. Do not buy long calls. That's not what I do. But weeklies in their season, and then longer term stuff in its season. So great question, Tomer. How am I playing earnings if I am? Also, how are you playing the next couple of months? Good question, man. As far as the push to 21 and subsequent runoff. So this is a good opportunity to talk about this. Let me get out Sketchpad here. Oh, it's our little thing from last time. Huh? So what is money? Let's get this. So right now my positions now are shares, cash, and cover calls. All right, that's what I have. Specifically, they are $20 cover calls, $20 strike, 20 March 26. Okay. I think my average entry price is around 580 per contract. Okay. So this is what I'm looking at right now. So right at the top, right at the top of our last move. Obviously, I entered a little bit early. I didn't enter right at 626 there. But I sold $20 cover calls. So I thought we were going back down. I was like, oh, we're going to go down. So $20 cover calls. And so what does that mean? It means that all the gains from that run I got, right? So moving up from 20 up to 26, that whole package, let's say, sealed that in and got handed the difference between those as cash. So I've been sitting on that as cash, waiting for us to kind of get back into that 21-ish, maybe even 20-ish to see how far down we go there range. So that is a perfect hedge. So what that means is, I mean, some extrinsic has bled off a bit, which is good over that time, right? Because there's some IV and there's some there's theta that's built into that. So there's been the loss of that extrinsic value, and right now the contracts, I mean, the spread on those contracts is not very good. They're not very liquid. So the mid usually comes in, I guess, slightly above what the intrinsic value is, but I think this week, especially as we get closer there, if we do see 22 or at least kind of a sub 23 value, I think we'll see some of the liquidity pop up in those a little bit. And then my idea is then, okay, close those out. And if indeed I'm right about this, and going into earnings, I think just before earnings, I'll enter into something similar for April OPEX. So might ride a little bit uncovered depending on where we end up. I mean, if we end up looking really nice and low, we'll close those out. It will look out if we close it at 23. I'll close these out like we think if price to 23 by March OPEX. Then, I'm going to try to close these at $3. Okay. So then my profit on that is going to be $280 per contract. So, not bad at all for 6 weeks, right? Not bad at all for 6 weeks, right? My in general, I try to average over my months. I try to average at least $1 a month. So there we go, right? That's a month and a half. That's actually, I mean, I'm way ahead in terms of that. I didn't really do too much in January. I don't think December was terribly, right? That was a lot of positioning stuff. And obviously, right, I added to my positions of shares in there. Getting a little dark. Let me turn on the light real quick. Okay. Yeah. So I think what I'm going to have happen here. Clip art. It's a vector fill. What's this? Can we do? What should I do? I guess I'll just use a pen. Well, can I do arrow? There we go. There we go. So we're going to roll these forward. Vector fill this green. Let's make it green. And we can do a little yellow thing. No! Just the arrow. How do I just do the arrow? Oh, there we go. There we go. So we're going to roll these. very likely. So if we say if price to, 21 after earnings, we're going to go 1 cash. Hey, come on. There we go. Why can't I do that? Cash is going into shares. That's number 1 there. There we go. And we're going to move. We'll probably go if prices, I'm going to say if it's at least at 23 pre-earnings, re-enter full on. I think I'm going to do, I haven't exactly yet decided, but I think I'm going to do this. We'll do 20 cc's for April OPEX. Might play with the strike. I'm not sure. And then if we do this, then we're going to sell OTM weeklies until down cycle is imminent, June-ish. Okay. Yes, very helpful, Guido. Thank you. There is a scenario too regarding the warrants where the expiration could get pushed forward 6 to 12 months. The company can do this. The company can just push the warrant expiration out and have that not be an issue. They don't have to expire in October. Benji Bonsai, do I usually play a spread each week? Vertical spread, or do I set everything at the same price? It depends, and it depends on the nature of the cycle. In an up cycle, I will do a spread of covered calls. So I'll do OTM weeklies, but I'll do partial. Part of the position, I'll go a little bit closer to the money. Part of the position will go a little bit farther out, part a little bit farther out, part a little bit farther out, depending on how I'm feeling. I kind of just do it by the seat of my pants, depending on how stuff is looking in terms of premiums. In this particular case, where I had some covered call positions early that I opened early. They were shorter term stuff that was in the money back at the end of January. And what I did is I martingaled in a certain sense. And for all of the stuff that was in the money when we got our high volatility, because that was a lot of high volatility, more than I thought, I was like, okay, cool. These were going to go out and down. So rolled them, I think they were like a mix of 22s and 23s. And I rolled them down from the, I think I had them maybe February OPEX. I rolled them out from February OPEX and down to the $20 strike for March OPEX. And then with the rest of my shares, which I had uncovered at that point, I went full in on on $20 cover calls. But that's because I had very high conviction that we were in one of these, Babe Ruth moments, as Richard refers to them, and that we had topped out when we were decently above 25. I was like, we're gonna go down. We have to go down from here. And yeah, that's preserved, right? I mean, I had like a day when we were flirting with 26 where it was like, maybe this is it, maybe I just get a sign, but then that lasted a day and we were done. And it's been, the cover calls have been green every day since then. So that worked out. We didn't go down as much as I thought we would by this point, as of end of January, I guess. Although it's still not March OPEX, so we could still go down a little bit more. I thought we'd get down to 22. I think, and right, there is still time to do that, but I thought we'd get down to 22 by March OPEX. Again, right, that is what the 53-week projection continues to say, and there is still a chance that we see that. Plus then a little bit recovery on that other side of it. So we'll actually see if that plays out. I mean, very interesting if 53-week projection may be extraordinarily overpowered. If we hit 22 this week, OP, very OP is all that I'll say about that. But yeah, what I'd like to do is obviously, depending on how much, right, if we see 22, I'm just going to go ahead and close the cover calls there. Maybe leave it a little bit uncovered going into earnings, and then, on the Tuesday of earnings, if we really recover big, then goes into those April monthlies, something like that. Opinions on warrants? Yeah, I don't trade them. I think I mentioned this last time we had a chat. For those of you who didn't catch that last live stream. I don't trade the warrants because I don't have a good pricing model for them. They should behave like options. They're supposedly priced with the Black-Scholes-Merton model. They do not behave like options. They should have declined in value over time. They should be priced at like a dollar right now. They're not, right? And I think, or this is why Guido's point about, hey, then these can be pushed forward. These are not destined to die in October. That's very important to keep in mind, because that can mean that they don't have to decay in the way that options do. That say the 32 calls for October have to, those will expire. Okay, the deadline will be honored. No guarantee for the warrant. So I don't trade them because I don't have a good way to estimate the pricing. And I haven't, there's too much else for me to concern myself with that I haven't really thought about putting together a pricing model for them. I observe them, but that's the thing. Although the one thing I would say is I do think major warrant-tied options expiries are important options expiries to keep under, under the warrant max pain strikes, is what I would say, because institutions, I think, do not want to deliver those, is what I'll say. Mr. Databucks, what's your ratio cash to shares right now? Ratio. Maybe 8-to-1 shares to cash, something like that. So I think maybe 85% of my portfolio is, I think so, 85% of my portfolio is shares right now, and about 15% is cash. That's what I'd say. We had that whole super low season there. So I was just like, bye. If the warrant expiry date is pushed forward, the warrant price would increase. No, I think that's right. Yeah. Yeah. So guys, that is that is my outlook here. I wanted to make sure we took some time this weekend, definitely before this stuff starts playing out and this stuff gets exciting, over the next couple of weeks, definitely been, I'll be keeping a very close eye on what's going on. Very interested to see if we get that right. I'm looking to see if we get that 22 mark this week. If we do, like I said, very OP validation, right, of the 53-week heuristic. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be stuff to monitor. Rainbow Road is a busy season. Am I planning to unload shares in a pump and get back into selling CSPs, or just wait out the low period? I mean, if I can time CSPs, or mostly what I do with CSPs is if I'm sitting on a lot of cash. If I'm sitting on a lot of cash and I'm just still waiting for that buy-in point, and it's just I want it to collect a little more stuff, right? I could have done that. I guess I was just lazy, and I didn't sell CSPs over the past couple of months. I guess I could have done that, on a weekly basis or a monthly basis or something like that, and made. At the time, the premiums were not especially great for, say, the entry price that I was looking for. But yeah, I do. Put liquidity is not great. Put premiums are not always great. Call volume is 90% of what gets traded on GME. And so it's just way easier, way more reliable to trade calls. When you do put stuff, better hold that to expiry. Be prepared to have to hold that to expiry. So I will probably, when we get close to the end of the cycle, rather than sell my shares, I will likely just sell some in the money covered calls at a couple of different expiries. It's probably what I do if I think, when I think we're going to move out of that mark there. Jodo says, I bought a bunch of warrants at 280 strictly because the last time Ryan sold a GME financial product converts, there was massive interest, and I assumed the same would happen for warrants. Well, yeah, hey, I mean, if you went ahead and bought those, they should be up right now. So nice job there, man. Hey, True Seth, glad you had the chance to join us, man. Yeah, I guess we'll wrap up stream here. Thanks a lot, everybody. Let me know right in the comments. Feel free to DM me about what you think about this time block. Right, I definitely felt like I was a lot sharper and could kind of get to questions a lot faster here. I know being in Cyprus, it's just a little bit more. We did this for a bit. It's tough to do that later time slot. I think like I said, baby is on the way. It's not going to necessarily get easier there. So I think it certainly allows me to be a bit sharper on this stuff. For the purpose of presenting these ideas, because nothing irks me more than somebody who's trying to express something and it goes so slowly and they take so much time to get the words out, especially with a live stream. If it's a video and I'm going slow, like you can fast forward it, right? If it's a live stream, you're gonna be motivated to try to not listen to it, right? To just I'll just wait for the recording. So yeah, let me know if this time slot works. Maybe we could do. I mean, again, there's this weird. You guys in the U.S. and Canada did daylight savings, but in the EU we still haven't done it yet. So there's a little bit of a time there. So we might do a little bit earlier. Maybe this time slot works. But let me know what you guys think. It was great talking to you guys today, as always. I really hope you found this very helpful. My primary reason of doing this is to do it for to give back to the GameStop community. I wouldn't know about GameStop if it weren't for the community. I don't want people. My whole MO in this is to have people not suffer in the way that I did when I made all the trading mistakes I did. When I first started trading, I think GameStop is a really fantastic opportunity on a lot of different levels. And so, I'm really thankful for you guys. I'm really thankful for the opportunity to be able to talk about this with you guys, and looking forward to seeing you. Yeah. Be it here on YouTube or over on Twitter throughout the week. So have a great weekend, you guys. And we'll see you next week. And God bless.